There's war going on in this world. A war on freedom.
He's acting outside of his authority by saying you can't put something that you want in your own body. That's your own personal choice, and can't nobody take that from you, you know?
You're one of these taxpayers, and these are all your documents, and this is how we're going to rob you. It's fucked up, man.
It's more war, it's more spending, it's more debt, and it's less freedom.
We don't do that here.
Some people think that you can't be radical and pragmatic.
This is what we need, is a pragmatic radicalism, not moderation. Hardcore radicalism, but smart shit.
It's not sitting in a fucking basement with a bunch of fucking nerds.
You don't know shit, and that's the thing. You have to talk to people who think differently than you.
Like, his focus is not how horrible the government is, it's how wonderful liberty and freedom are.
That's what drives us.
People are coming together more and more and more and more as the government has been failing us.
We're just getting started. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Fight for Liberty Live. Got a great show for you guys tonight. I'm super excited. But first, like always, we're going to talk about some sponsors. First and foremost, as always, you know them and love them. At least I hope you do by now. If you've been watching this show for any amount of time and you haven't already gone to nuggofknowledge.com, used your promo code F4L and gotten some fantastic cannabis products from the awesome libertarian guys over at Nugg of Knowledge, then what are you doing? What are you doing with your life? Go to nuggofknowledge.com. You get great weed at decent prices. You get to support the show, the network. You get to support awesome libertarians that you know and love, like Tom Queter and Dan Berman and all cool people. And you get to get high. So win-win all around. I say this every time. Go to nuggofknowledge.com and definitely use that promo code. Because as much as we love Nugg of Knowledge, we still want you to get the best deal possible. So get that 10% off. Next up, Kemp from Maine. Our good friend Harrison Kemp, he's running for governor of Maine, and he's already getting some key endorsements like the Maine Cannabis Coalition. He has some really awesome people on his staff, people that worked for Ron Paul, people who've been elected state house reps already. Just a really awesome, exciting campaign going on up there. So go to kempformaine.com, check him out. You can go to kempformaine.com/fightforliberty if you would like to give a few dollars to the campaign, or a few hundred. We'd love to see that too. But definitely go check them out. Tonight, we have a at-large member from the Libertarian National Committee. Oh, my computer's going to die. Oh. Let me do this first. Sorry about that, guys. I forgot I moved my computer and didn't plug it back in. We have an awesome person for you guys tonight. He is an at-large member. He's running for vice chair. He is a successful real estate entrepreneur, and I'm super excited to talk to him about bringing a professional system to the LNC. So, Erik Raudsep, welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you doing? How's everyone else doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I escaped the cold from New York, and I'm in Houston working at the moment, and so that's been great. It's still kind of cold here, but it's in the 50s instead of the 2s or 3s, so I'm good.
There you go. I mean, hey, I left New York to get away from taxes and snow. I moved down to North Carolina over 10 years ago, and this weekend is going to be our third weekend in a row with a snowstorm. So it seems like took a while, but it followed me down here. So yeah.
And the taxes are catching up down there too, right?
They are, but they're not as bad as New York was 10 years ago yet.
That's fair.
It's still theft. They are figuring out new ways to rob you left, right, and center, but it still doesn't total as bad as New York was even 10 years ago yet. So, yeah, but they're learning, unfortunately. They are figuring out the tax scheme here down in North Carolina.
I mean, hey, we are the best at everything we do, including theft.
Yes, New York definitely is the king of the den of thieves.
Oh, yeah. So first question is, I always like to start off with kind of a testimonial question. So who is the first like big L libertarian that you met?
The first big L libertarian that I met. Ooh. That's a tough one. I met Ron Paul when he was on the Republican ticket at the time that I met him. He was not on the Libertarian ticket. So obviously he's my first little L celebrity that I kind of met. As far as big L running on the ticket, that would have to be Gary Johnson was the first one that I actually physically met as far as presidential candidates. Of course, Barbara Howe, who has run for governor, for Senate, for Congress, for every position imaginable down here in North Carolina. I met her before I met Gary Johnson. She's actually one of the individuals who got me active in the Libertarian Party, even though I had registered Libertarian. I wasn't active at the time. She's the one who convinced me. So I'm going to go with Barbara Howe as the person that was the first big L Libertarian that got me involved in the party, and an amazing woman.
So
a powerhouse down here in North Carolina.
That's awesome. What was it about Barbara that drove you to go from enrolled to active?
Well, I mean, I had been politically active before. I've worked on presidential campaigns. I've worked on U.S. Senate campaigns. I did committee work on the Hill. I've written legislation for the U.S. government as well as the German government. Nothing that got passed because obviously they thought it wasn't going to suit their needs because I wrote it with a libertarian slant.
Shocking.
But I know, shocking, right? She convinced me that it was the right thing to do, and that libertarians are not the wackadoos and the crackpots that I had initially met. Okay, so the very first one, I forget his last name, but his first name was Stephen. He was running for U.S. Congress up in New York, and he told me out on Long Island, Congressional District 2. He told me that libertarians believe that all property owned by the government needs to be destroyed. And part of his campaign platform was that he was going to hand out chainsaws to cut down the dock piers and physically destroy the docks. And I'm like, well, okay, I follow you on government not owning property, but why can't we just sell it and actually pay down debt? And that was not an acceptable answer for him. It needs to be destroyed and rebuilt. That was my first introduction to the Libertarian Party. So it was several years after that I met Barbara Howe, and she told me that she got me to convince that libertarians are not crackpots and wackadoos, and I've been here ever since. And
then you joined and realized we actually are still crackpots and wackadoos. Crackpots and wackadoos,
but lovable crackpots and wackadoos. That I mean, if you look at it, okay, so Nugg of Knowledge is one of your sponsors here.
Mm-hmm.
Libertarians have been talking about marijuana reform or just drug reform in general since the 1970s.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's popular.
Yep.
Now the rest of America realizes that we've been right all along. They can't admit that we're right, but they realize that we're right all along.
Yep.
And it's over and over and over again. That's just one example. And so many things in our platform, in our principles. American politics realizes approximately 20 to 50 years after we say it that, oh my gosh, the libertarians are right. And we're going to go do that now.
Mm-hmm.
Surprise!
That's why I'm trying to get in on the ground floor of some of this psilocybin movement, because it's gaining steam, but it's not quite there yet. It is in the perfect situation for some libertarians with some money to actually put into these ballot initiatives for those of us like myself who do that part of it professionally to work this, to get this stuff legalized. And from a libertarian written initiatives that don't include any tax incentives or anything like that. And get in on the ground floor of the actual business too, because it's gonna be a moneymaker for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, a good friend of mine, I went to elementary school with. Actually, today's his birthday. His name's Jason Spadafora, and
Happy birthday, Jason.
And he is widely known as the Wolf of Weed Street. He actually writes all sorts of articles. He's been featured in Playboy and Forbes magazine and all over. He's a multi-millionaire now, more than I could ever hope for. But yeah, that's what he was. He was on the ground floor of the marijuana industry long before anything was formalized or even remotely legal. He's been in on the industry before Colorado, and now he trades weed stocks and makes a fortune on it, and helps people get in on that. So yeah, you're on the absolute right track on trying to get in on psilocybin, because that's the next big thing. You know, you're going to see all the naturals, I think, become legal here in probably the next 5 to 10 years. Around the country. You're going to have a real hard fight for cocaine and for LSD and anything that doesn't actually come out of the ground. That's going to be a much harder fight. But I think all the naturals, yeah, absolutely. I think within 5 to 10 years, we're over the tip of the iceberg already.
Yeah, and you know, from a libertarian, like, philosophical standpoint, obviously I believe that, like, the entire war on drugs is bad, and like all rules that tell you what you can and can't put in your body are bad. But you know, if I could get cannabis, psilocybin, DMT, and MDMA legalized, I would be okay with the fact that no one can get fentanyl on the street, you know, like.
Well, and actually, the funny thing you brought up fentanyl, I think actually fentanyl is going to be one of the main reasons that we're going to see widespread legalization, because there are so many drugs out there that are being laced with fentanyl that if we take it out of the black market and bring it into the open market and the free market, it's going to make our drugs safer. Regardless, outside of the FDA, forget the FDA. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just being in the open market and the free market. That's going to make all of the drugs out there safer. Less people are going to die because it's out in the open. It's the same thing with prostitution. Prostitution should be legal. Everything's out in the open, and a better product comes out to market. And that's what it is. That's the libertarian solution. And people are finally starting to understand. And it's actually thanks to fentanyl that this is going to really become a sticking point, and people are going to understand our argument for the first time, because nothing like this has ever happened to this scale before. And I think we should be talking about fentanyl and how much fentanyl is destroying lives.
Because no one, because no one, or I won't say no one. Unfortunately, I do know some people that have and would, but like pretty much no one is voluntarily purchasing fentanyl. Like, so even if we legalize fentanyl, which sounds terrifying to most people, like no one's gonna buy it.
It shouldn't be on. I think you should have a prescription to get fentanyl. You know, if something the size of Lincoln's nose on a penny can kill you, you should probably have a prescription for it. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I very much focused more on the entheogens and the natural stuff, because it is so much. I think you're right. You know, we're moving forward on it, and it's I don't know. It's also something that I'm really a big fan of. Like, I fucking love doing drugs. So
yeah, well, you know, hey, I'm looking forward to the day where I can get my cocaine in cough syrup again. Nothing cures a cold like cocaine. I'm just putting it out there.
You know what? I can't say I've tried.
Well, neither have I. But you know, in the 1880s. You know, did anyone have COVID? No. Okay, fine. I rest my point. There you go. No one gets COVID when they're taking cocaine.
That's gonna be the next tweet of mine that gets flagged for misinformation. I'm gonna do like cocaine and cough syrup cures COVID. No, I literally had a tweet like it was like 3 days ago now. I saw a meme that was it was a picture of a cowbell and it said like the cure that no one's really talking about. And so
You always need more cowbell.
right.
Always need more cowbell.
So I tweeted that and I said ivermectin and cowbell is the cure to COVID. And within 10 minutes it got flagged for misinformation, so you can't like it or comment on it. You can only quote tweet it so that you can like shut it down is their thought process. But it's gotten over 300 quote tweets, all of them positive, of course. It's like one of my
Absolutely.
most successful tweets from the last week because I haven't really been on Twitter. And so I love it that they're like
somehow.
they're trying to flag me thinking that it's gonna hurt the algorithm or something.
Oh, come on. What was it? Steve Harvey just like 2 weeks ago said you can't be a comedian any longer because everyone takes everything too seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And comedians are, if you can't make fun of people, you're not actually working as a comedian. So comedians are a dying art because of all the political correctness and the wokeness in the world. And I think he's absolutely right, because if you can't say cowbell is one of the cure-alls for COVID, okay, if anyone takes you seriously on that and starts running around their house ringing a cowbell trying to cure their COVID, I think they're
too far gone.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
like if someone's doing that, I'm not the thing that's gonna kill them.
Yeah.
Something else will get to them first.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's just the society that we live in right now. I think this has to be the extreme apex, and we have to start coming back down to normal, because no one can take a joke. You can't even make a joke without being censored, blacklisted, or canceled in our culture.
Or wishing somebody happy birthday.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That was too easy. We're talking about cancel culture. Like,
I know. Cancel culture is alive and well in the Libertarian Party, and if that doesn't tell you the extent of this issue, it's amazing.
I could not agree
wish someone
more.
happy birthday and you get shit on. Can I swear on this show? I don't know.
Yeah. Oh yes, very much
okay,
so.
good. I
intend
on
to.
PG shows and G-rated shows, so I just want to make sure.
Yeah, we're not on the TV or the radio, so we can say whatever we want. And
good.
we'll see how much longer we're on YouTube for saying some of the things that we say.
YouTube has started cracking down on things. It's amazing. I don't understand it.
I just went on my good friend Angelo Veltri's show, and our episode got taken down for misinformation. And I don't even remember what we said. I'll have to go back and look at it because I know we did talk about COVID and the vaccines, but I don't recall really going too deep into it to have even said any like semi-scientific research that my friends that do that stuff have done. Like I didn't cite anything. I didn't say anything. I'm pretty sure I just said that like, maybe these vaccines aren't great.
Well, okay. So it depends on who you are. If it's right for you, it's right. If you don't think it's right for you, then it's not right for you. There's a lot of new information coming out of it. I'm vaccinated.
Mm-hmm.
Do I care if you're vaccinated? Do I care if anyone else is vaccinated? No, it's a personal choice. You do what's right for you. I mean, you look at the new data that's coming out that the Pfizer vaccine can alter the menstrual cycle of women
Mm-hmm.
by anywhere between 1 and 8 days. Okay, these are legitimate concerns. Luckily, I don't have a menstrual cycle, so that doesn't play into it. But, if you were a woman, I think, hey, I would have real second thoughts about getting the Pfizer vaccine.
Yeah.
There's Moderna, there's Johnson & Johnson. If you still want one, if you don't, hey, that's a personal choice and good for you. You're an adult. You have the ability.
Right.
It's just like, When in this country did we stop treating our citizens like adults who can actually make choices for themselves? Shock and horror. I mean, I don't understand this. I don't understand where this entire idea that we aren't adults and we don't have our own mental capacity, out there. Maybe the Washingtonians are actually trying to judge us by their mental capacity because we've proven that they don't have any. But hey,
I don't know.
we're not inside the Beltway, and we're not lacked for air, and still have some mental capacity out there.
Yeah. See, I don't know. I don't think that we represent the average American, though. Like, the thing that has me the most depressed. So right now, I'm just for work. I'm working a Republican primary campaign here in Houston. It's like a mediocre candidate, but decent money, and like Republicans gonna win this, and regardless. So fuck it.
I used to work for the Republican Party. They paid much better than the Democrats, that's for sure.
I mean, yes and no. This is, I think, the best that I've gotten. But I worked for a PAC that was supporting Biden and the Senate candidate in North Carolina last year, or in 2020. And that was like one of the best jobs I've ever had. But that was Biden, like that. All the good money was
you're
there.
talking about a president. That's a different pay scale. But but if you work
Paid a lot better than Tulsi Gabbard, that's for sure.
Well, yeah. Well, whenever you're working with Congress, it pays a lot less. Senate
Oh no, I
pays more.
was on her
Presidential
presidential
pays
campaign.
more.
But yeah, they're
well, that
very
was
much
primary
unfunded.
too. Primary doesn't count. Primary doesn't count. No.
It's a good point. But my point there was, so it's a primary campaign, right? It's 5 Republicans running against each other. All of these candidates are Republicans, right? Like we understand what that means, right? Okay. The amount of people, and I'm saying like probably close to a third of the people that I actually have a conversation with in a day respond to me with some variation of, I always vote Republican, so you'll definitely have my vote.
But so are the other 4 people in the race.
Right. So like
I know.
I think maybe Washington might be right about this.
No, I wouldn't go that
People
far.
are dumb.
I wouldn't.
I mean, obviously not like to where I want Washington making medical decisions for people, but I do think that the average American populace is significantly less informed on a great many things than I think a lot of people who, especially the kind of person who like goes to college, like works in something like professional, like gets surrounded by intellectual people at an early age and then kind of keeps that going. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. I also blame the media in large respect, because long gone are the days of Walter Cronkite, where actually they had news on the evening news. And the world news after the evening news actually talked about things going on in the world. Now, if you turn on the news, it's about Britney Spears' bra strap and, just things that have no pertinence in anybody's life. But it's just this never-ending stream of clickbait that you never get to the meat and potatoes of, or to actually where they're going, because then they're on to the next clickbait. Our news has devolved, and for you to actually become informed, it's still out there, but it takes a lot more work.
Oh yeah.
I read London Times, Deutsche Welle, Washington Post, New York Times. I read about 5 different newspapers, or at least their electronic versions, every single day. And then you shoot in between somewhere inside of all 5, if they all report on the same story, and you'll find the truth. It's really odd. But I also seek news out more than the average individual. So I don't know. I mean, there has to be a happy medium between me and the average American, I guess. That's my point.
That's fair. I I used to go to Bloomberg mostly for my news, because my thought process was, everyone has their skew towards something. Bloomberg's skew is towards money, and almost exclusively that. And so that's an easier thing to kind of suss out. I work in finance. Like I'm used to people just running the rat race kind of mentalities. It's easier to kind of suss that out. So I always went to Bloomberg for so long until he started getting more politically active, and then it actually became politically skewed and not just monetarily anymore, and it became almost unreadable. They started going after my industry of finance really hard in like 2018, 2019. They were doing a hit piece against some company in my industry pretty much at least once a week. And I couldn't keep reading it. I was like, you guys suck. Like, you're just blatantly misinforming the populace.
Well, and I think that also has to do a lot with our society again, because we are so politically divided. I mean, we have never been so deep in our camps as we are now. Republicans are true red Republicans. Democrats are true blue Democrats. Libertarians talk about voting the gold standard. Greens are greens. Everyone is in their camp, and no one actually is looking for the rational or the reasonable. Now, granted, I'm on the LNC. I don't want anyone listening to this ever voting for anything other than a libertarian, please. No, I mean, but it's true. I mean, we are politically divided like we've never seen before in this country. And I don't know what the solution is. And our media and everybody is getting sucked into it because it's a wonderful talking point. And that's really one of the problems that we have in this country right now. And actually, it's around the world. It's not just in this country. You see it even in Sweden, Germany, Israel, India. It goes right around the world. It's the same thing.
Well, we showed them how to do it. Pretty early on in the US, we developed the two-party system, and we showed the world that when you pretend to give them democracy, I'm not getting into the whether or not we live in a democracy, but like, if you give people democracy, you can placate the power that democracy actually gives to the people by dividing them in half and making them fight each other. And it works, and it works really well. And so I feel like most of the rest of the countries that, we're like, hey, we kind of like that democracy thing. But hey, we also kind of like that duopoly thing. That's nice. Yeah. Let's try that.
We're the only nation in the entire Western world that considers themselves a democracy and has only two parties. Canada has 7. England has 8, I believe. Germany has 12. Italy has 32 parties. It go right around the world. Even Russia has more parties than we do. If you look at another major country in this world that has only 2 parties, China has 3. Congratulations. We're less than China. Okay.
Well, a lot of those countries fix that problem by having like the coalitions. So like England or India, like they create that. It's almost like caucuses within a party instead of parties.
Well, but caucuses shift. Who the Labor Party is with today is not necessarily who the Labor Party is going to be with tomorrow. This is and that's one of those things. You'll find political parties outside of the United States much more concerned about their individual principles than they are here in the United States. If you look at the State Department, the U.S. State Department, and what their definition of a democracy is, currently the United States does not fit the U.S. Department of State's definition of a democracy. And if that isn't telling, I don't know what else is, because even our State Department says what we have is fucking sham. Okay. But, you know, hey.
I mean, even my history book says that we're a representative republic. Like,
well, yeah, okay, but we don't even make that. I mean, I'm sorry, it's not. We're not a representative republic. We're not. Who are they representing? Their pocketbook? Come on. I mean, it's
Lockheed Martin, Pfizer.
Yeah, exactly. Lockheed Martin, Boeing. You know,
American Airlines.
American Airlines, Pfizer, Moderna, you know, I mean, whatever corporations, Walmart, you know, I mean, hell, whoever, look at the corporate welfare, and then you'll find out who the true representatives in this government are, you know, and it's ridiculous. It's really sad. And we should just, you know, trash the Constitution and change "we the people" and put "we the corporations" and go for it. You know, it's ridiculous. I mean, we've lost complete sight of what our founders had envisioned. We've created a mockery of a political system, and we've forgotten that people actually run this place. You know, this is exactly why the French monarchs lost their damn heads. Next year, I'm going to have Biden walking out on the front lawn and say, "Let them eat cake." You know, I mean, we're not far off. We've already had January 6th. Consider that the Bastille, and we'll move on from there. I'm sorry, but I mean, if
wish
American
January
politics,
6th was more like the storming of the Bastille.
Well, I know. It's the American version. It's, you know.
It's the fat, lazy Walmart Wendy's version.
Yeah, with a little more, you know, boom in it, and you know, give someone, give the Hollywood people their happy times, you know. But it's scary. It's really, really scary, and the people are tired of not being listened to any longer, and that's why I think the Libertarian Party, potentially the Constitution Party, potentially the Veterans Party, potentially the Green Party, are going to be very quickly looking at becoming major players in the American political landscape. We've never seen anything like this since the fall of the Whig Party, and even that was kind of pathetic. You know, I'm sorry, it was. I mean, but this is the tree of liberty. I mean, this is really what Thomas Jefferson was talking about, and it's really scary. And I don't know if a simple election is the rectification of the situation any longer. I don't want to see violence. I abhor violence. I'm a libertarian. I'm pro peace, but people are fed up in this country. You listen to them, talk to them. You know, you look at the African American community, the Black community. They realize that they're getting the short end of the stick every single day. The Hispanics are the same way. The Asians are suing every single university in America, and the Supreme Court's picking up the case. I mean, granted, that'll probably end affirmative action, which is wonderful because affirmative action should have never occurred. But at the same time, why can't we just think of ourselves as people instead of actually thinking of myself as white or you black or you Hispanic or whatever? We all put our pants on one leg at a time, and why do we need to put ourselves into separate buckets?
I don't. I jump really high in the air and I put them both on at the same time.
Well, you're weird, okay?
But no, I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, I think that for the lack of a better word, even though I fucking hate the term, no matter who's using it, but like the woke culture, and then I think equally the anti-woke culture is like the new duopoly. I think that what we were talking about earlier is being realized by the powers that be, the cathedral, whatever you want to call that, the group. And so they came up with this, they figured out, I don't think that they started the woke thing. I think that was legitimately started by legitimate anti-establishment, like people that wanted to see something change. I think it got co-opted and turned into what it is now. and people that are on the other side of it. Like, I respect the fuck out of Jordan Peterson, but he plays into this a little bit. People like James Lindsay, people like the just super anti-woke people, I think, are the Republicans to the woke people's Democrats, and it's just the new duopoly. It's the new divide and conquer.
You know, you raise a very good point. It's really scary, and they feed off of each other. And there's no I mean, I love Jordan Peterson. I think he has some amazing writings.
Oh yes.
And I love what he says, but a lot of his new rhetoric that he's coming out with, these anti-woke statements and stuff like that, is feeding in to this entire woke culture more than ever before. And it's weird. It's scary, actually. Like they're feeding off of each other like vampires feeding off of each other. You know, it's like they're sucking each other's neck out at the same point. It's a never-ending cycle. It's I don't know where it's going to go, and I don't even know if America knows where it's going to go.
I don't think so either. And honestly, I have a lot of respect for Jordan and for like a lot of the people on both sides of this issue, honestly. And that respect is why this annoys me so much, because rather than continuing to talk about the important things that Jordan Peterson has been talking about for almost a decade now, he's getting caught up in fighting the woke mob and being anti-woke, and rather than becoming, say, more libertarian and becoming more anti-state, anti-authority, anti-coercion, anti-theft, he's becoming anti-woke. And I think it's a problem that's happening in the LP as well. There's a lot of people that are getting caught up into that, where they hate the left and they hate the woke 10 times more than they love liberty or freedom.
I think that's a valid point. And it is very dangerous, because liberty isn't just being anti-woke, it's being compassionately anti-woke. And I think that's something that's, I mean, the woke culture is a negative. I mean, it is. But we can't fight being woke just because it's fighting woke. There still has to be compassion. There still has to be reason in the argument, and we're just beating each other over the head with baseball bats at this point, and it's not being productive.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So speaking of fun things happening in the Libertarian Party, I'm curious, first of all, what made you want to join the LNC originally? What spirited that run?
I'm a glutton for punishment, and I'm a little bit of a sadist. No. You wanted the political answer, not the real answer. I'm sorry. Okay. No. So I'm very lucky. I come from North Carolina. I've been on the state XCOM multiple times. I just up until recently, for many years, I was the chair of my county. And there's a phenomenal team here in North Carolina. We are very lucky in the fact that we have marketing people doing marketing. We have videographers doing video. We have consummate professionals donating their time and services in actually the professions that they're associated with. And I felt like it was a good time for me to say, hey, I'm going to step up now. I've been working with you guys for a while. I've really gotten a lot done here in North Carolina. I want you guys to shine. I'm going to take the step up. So the bench got built, and I moved up. And I thought it was the right thing to do. I had a lot of vision that I had seen in North Carolina or in the national LP. I wanted to create candidate in the box, affiliate in the box, really rework a lot of our marketing and our branding. And a lot of it's gotten done. I mean, Valerie did a phenomenal job with Affiliate in the Box. I'm glad she did that. Candidate in the Box still needs to be built. We're working on our marketing. It's getting better. There's a lot that needs to still be done. But bringing Larissa on last year, unfortunately, she's off to greener pastures. But just the fact that she was here for a year,
is she?
You know,
I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
How
Larissa,
recent is that? How recent is that?
That happened January 1st.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So,
that's recent enough for me not to know about it. That makes sense.
Yeah. You know, so we're looking for a new PR person or marketing person here in the party. So once the new LNC is seated, I'm sure that's going to kick into high gear. Yeah, I mean, but there's a lot, you know, a lot has gotten done and a lot still more to do. I'm very operationally minded. I come from a long line of operational positions. You had mentioned earlier that I'm in real estate. I do home inspection and property management and home handyman service. So I'm overseeing a lot of individuals. So I'm operationally minded. I've done corporate operations. I was in military intelligence. So, you know, all of that stuff. Operations is my thing. That's why I want to be the vice chair. I have a lot to bring towards this position, especially if the bylaws changes that are proposed come to be in Reno. That's really going to make the vice chair position even more operationally centered. So it's definitely something that is in my wheelhouse, something that I can bring my expertise to and really help the party for the next 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you answered my next question, which was why the jump to vice chair. What are some of those? I mean, we don't have to get too wonky, but what can you speak on some of those bylaw changes that you're talking about?
So actually, one of the bylaw changes that I brought forward is actually making the positions on the LNC a little more defined, particularly in the respects to chair, vice chair, and treasurer, bringing it in line with current corporate America, where you have the chair more as a CEO, outward facing, directing the Libertarian Party and its future. What are we talking about? Where are we going? Then you have the vice chair, which is more inward facing, more operationally minded, making sure that the chair's vision becomes reality by using the tools that we have within the party. And then you have the treasurer, more of a CFO position, and really bringing everything in line with corporate America structure. Because in reality, we are a corporation and we need to handle ourselves that way. So we might as well model our structure and our breakout of labor and resources in that manner as well. So that's kind of a nutshell of the bylaws changes that are coming forward. I think they're really strong and they can really help to define particularly the vice chair position, which is kind of always just hung out there. Oh yeah, he represents Region 0, which are the unaffiliated states that don't have a region, and then he does a whole bunch of other stuff too. Not sure.
Kind of like the vice president. Like
right,
they do a lot of work, but no one really knows what it is.
Well, and you know, and the funny thing is, a good operations manager, you should always wonder what they're doing anyway, because when they're doing a good job, they don't look like they're actually doing anything. So that's actually usually the sign of a good operations manager. And that's what it is. You know, I mean, it really comes down to assigning those roles, assigning that labor and the division of labor to make sure that nobody is overstressed. You know, if you look at what is actually on the chair's plate, there is
it's insane.
It is insane, and this is a volunteer position. No one gets paid for anything. No, you know, everything is done on your own dime. You want to talk about burnout? You look at, you know, the chair position, and then you wonder how they emerge from this with sanity. And
I'd argue none of them have.
I was going to make the same point, but hey, you made it for me, so thank you.
I mean, I only know 3 of our former chairs, but
yeah, no, I mean,
I don't think there's much hope for the one there right now.
Exactly, and especially as our party is growing at exponential rates, because Americans are realizing, oh crap, these people are right all along. I should join them. That's what it is. The chair's position is going to get larger and larger, and if we don't have this separation of responsibility, you think the burnout's bad now? Oh my gosh, wait 5 years. See what chairs look like when they get out. I mean, people say the president ages 10 years in a 4-year position. If we don't start taking away some of the roles and responsibilities of the chair of the Libertarian Party, they'll come out looking like the Crypt Keeper.
You're not wrong.
No.
Well, speaking of chair, I'm gonna put you on the spot, and I'll give you an out. Do you have someone that you're favoring in that chair race, or are you more like me and hope that someone else steps in?
So I was in Georgia, and I listened to Angela and Tony debate. And I will tell you, Angela came out as such a clear winner in that debate. I was blown away. Angela is an amazing bridge builder. She has clearly laid out plans. I was thoroughly impressed with her presentation and her messaging, and I'd love to see more. I want to know more, and I'm lucky in the fact that she's supporting my run for vice chair, and she has chosen. She wants to work with me, so I'm looking forward to developing that relationship that I've already started developing with Angela.
Nice. I'm actually hosting the two of them in a debate later on next month. I think it's like the 24th.
I'll definitely be watching. Angela, I have to say, she just blew me away with her plans, her messaging. It was really strong. Her performance. I think it's up on YouTube now because it wasn't live streamed. But yeah, give that a watch.
I will do that.
I think that really shows who has the presentation for chair coming up here. I'm not saying that Tony's a great guy. I've liked Tony for years. Tony spent a lot of time in North Carolina. He's up in New York now. I've known Tony for a long time, and I think he's a great guy. I really do. But out of the two of them, I'm being won over by Angela pretty hard.
And part of me doesn't want to support Tony because he's not done in New York yet. He doesn't get to get out of it that easy. He doesn't get to just run away to national, cop out. I mean, I left the state and resigned from the state party, and I'm copping out. But he doesn't get to do that. He's Tony D'Orazio. He's been here for forever, and he's got to stay here.
Well, he stepped down to second vice chair or first vice chair.
First vice chair currently.
First vice chair, yeah.
So he was first vice, then he was chair, and then he went back to first vice.
First vice, yeah.
And chairs, I'd say 2/3 of the subcommittees that we have on the state committee. Pretty much our state chair, per the bylaws, is supposed to chair most of the committees, but they can abdicate that to one of their two vice chairs, and he's done that to Tony on so many of those, just because Tony's the guy for the job. They actually work fairly well together. I really supported his run to replace JBH there for the temporary, just because I watched him kind of step into New York as chair for a little bit, and then hold it together during a shitstorm, and then hand it off at the next election peaceably and professionally, and still work with the person that beat him. So that would have been great. Unfortunately, we didn't get Tony. We got Whitney, and here we are.
Yeah, I met Whitney when I started this this term on the LNC. I mean, I knew who she was, but I had never worked with her. I did work with her quite a bit on the convention committee when she was still a region rep. And I developed a great respect for her. I loved working with her. And I still have a huge amount of respect and admiration for Whitney. I've gotten to the point where she's probably not the chair that I would have envisioned. And I'm not saying that, you know, that it's personal opinion. And like I said, I still like her as an individual. She's not it's not the direction of the LNC that I had envisioned. But hey, that's just me.
Yeah, and that's why I mean, so I'm actually in a wonderful position where I have like a next to 0% chance of even being considered for a delegation seat in New York, let alone actually like get it. And even before I resigned from the state committee, when I was guaranteed a seat, I was planning to like I don't what's the word, like recuse myself or whatever, because I don't want to vote in these elections or on like the only thing is, so there's not only do you have some bylaw changes that I would very much like to be there to vote on, there's a few other people that have talked to me about bylaws stuff, so that's kind of making me like consider reaching out to like California or one of the other larger delegations that's usually has some empty seats. But like I'm perfectly fine with going to Reno, working a couple tables, getting very, very stoned and quite drunk, and probably do a couple different types of psychedelics and enjoy myself and not vote on anything.
There you go. Hey, you know, that's a great plan too. I mean, my first convention I ever went to was Columbus. Yeah, Columbus was my first libertarian
I'm
convention.
sorry. Like Columbus,
Yeah,
Ohio?
I know, right? Yeah, Columbus, Ohio. And I was not a delegate. They offered me to be a delegate because they had open seats. But yeah, no, I said no. I'm relatively new to the Libertarian Party. I'll sit this one out. And yeah, I had a great time drinking and watching everything going on and all of that stuff. And then the next convention was Orlando. And yeah, that I was a delegate in Orlando, and I've been a delegate to every national convention since. So yeah, but my first convention, no, I was just an observer, and I had a great time.
Yeah, and I haven't actually been to a national convention yet, which a bunch of people are arguing is why I should be a delegate, because like I should at least experience it once. And I'm like,
Yeah.
But I went to 3 state conventions this year for states that weren't mine. And I'm actually going to be missing my state convention. But you know, they had the business meeting. I got to like not pay attention. Like I went to Michigan, and actually probably my favorite experience from a state convention this year or last year. I went to the Michigan State Convention, and they had done a like special rules of order amendment to allow a voice vote because everything had to be 2/3. So it's easy to tell 2/3. And so me and Tasha Cohen were sitting in the back. Obviously, neither of us delegates to the Michigan State Convention, right? And like we were just kind of hanging out and talking, and Spike was sitting on the other side of her, and he was hanging out for a little bit, and then he got like pulled into some conversations, and Tasha and I just start complaining about how long it's taking. And because we got into like the resolutions part, so people are just like, be it resolved to some random bullshit that we're going to argue about. Like somebody tried to do an intellect like an IP thing that like they wanted to make a resolution to like disavow IP, and I'm like, really, are we about to have the IP debate like per
Oh,
Robert's rules. Are you kidding me?
So I have to say, this is another reason why North Carolina is amazing. We ditched Robert's rules. We used the Democratic Rules of Order.
Spicy.
I know, because we're libertarian and we can't follow those rules. Those are statist rules. We're going to go Democratic Rules of Order. Yeah. And no, actually, it works really well. I'm a big fan of the Democratic Rules of Order. Hey, back in high school, I was my school's parliamentarian when I was in high school, and I know Robert's rules. Yeah, but no, even then, I mean, Democratic Rules of Order. It's a lot cleaner, especially for a lot of individuals who are relatively unaware or unexperienced of rules of business or formalized rules of a meeting. Democratic Rules of Order is much simpler. It's much friendlier and easier to comprehend, and there are less pitfalls.
Okay, if you're watching this right now and you think he's wrong and you love Robert's rules and you're a decent debater, let me know. I'll have you on to debate Eric about Democratic versus Roberts, because I would love to see that debate, because I'm such a nerd.
So Robert's Rules of Order, of course, my Democratic Rules of Order are downstairs. But Robert's Rules is a book that's about, I don't know, it's about 1.5 inches, 2 inches thick.
It's ridiculous.
Democratic Rules is about 1/4 of an inch thick, and it covers everything.
What a not. I mean, the thing. So I've never read the book, but I've been in fucking dozen organizations at this point that use Robert's rules, or pretend to use Robert's rules.
There you go.
Kind of like
That's
house rules. It's kind of what I've noted. Well, so what I feel like is like a lot of people use Robert's rules at some point in time in their childhood or like early adult life, and then when they go on to like make an organization, they use motions and they use seconds, and they bring in the useful shit that they remember from civics class and then just like toss out the rest of it, which is kind of.
So it's just like politicians. There's just enough truth in there that it's believable, and the rest of it is made up as you go. That's pretty. That's how most people use Robert's rules. I have every single Robert's rules on my bookshelf from the 90s to today, and that's 4 different versions, I believe. I've been working with Robert's rules for a while.
That's beautiful.
I hate to admit it.
That's beautiful. But I'll finish that story up real quick. Because Tasha and I, we started voting, but because it was a voice vote. So we were just sitting in the back, and we started voting for basically anything that would make the meeting end quicker. Like, regardless of actual stances, like regardless of anything else, just if it was like a call to question, fuck yes. If it was anything that would make it like delayed or continue, no. Just like just whatever would make the meeting end faster. And like we were 2 people in a room of almost 350 people. So like obviously our votes weren't really counting too much, but it was fucking hilarious to just sit there at the back with her.
I absolutely love Tasha. I think Tasha is probably one of the best people I've met on the road. And you know what? I'm also a really big fan of Tasha's husband, whatever his name is.
Spunk Conan, I believe.
Spunk. Yeah, there you go. Spunk Conan.
I actually, when I had him on the show, I made like the name banner here. I made it say Spunk Conan, and I had that up when he came into the thing.
So Spike and I have an ongoing joke. I mean, we've had a joke going on now for a little over 2 years now. So we had met in Wilmington, and then The next week was the South Carolina convention. And he came up to me, and it was like the first time we had ever met. And I was like, Spike, we met last week in Wilmington. Oh, that's right. Da, 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 da. Then, like a week or two later, we're in Greensboro, North Carolina. And he comes up to me and he says, oh, it's great to meet you. It's like, Spike, we met 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago in Wilmington. Then the week after that, we met in South Carolina. And this is the third time we're meeting. And ever since, no matter how many times we've seen each other, it's like, oh my gosh, I get to finally meet you. I've heard such great things. Oh, geez. So now it's become a complete joke, and I absolutely love it.
I love that, man.
I get to meet someone who has become a dear, close friend of mine for the first time every single time I see him. So it's been great, absolutely great. I love it.
Well, I found it very funny when I met you in Virginia. I didn't recognize you because I wasn't actually like putting names. You just introduced yourself as Eric, and I was just like, oh, Eric, cool. And we had like a half an hour conversation, and then you give me your business card, and I'm like, oh, you're that Eric. Okay. I just had this long ass conversation with an at-large rep to the LNC. Well, I'm fancy.
Well, I like to make myself approachable. So, and meeting libertarians is one of the best things about being an at-large and having conversations. And I find that if I tell people, oh yeah, I'm on the LNC, my name's Erik Raudsep, it changes the entire conversation and truly wrecks it, because I don't get an accurate portrayal of what their opinion of the Libertarian Party is. It becomes either, oh my God, it's the best thing in the world, a sliced bread Libertarian Party, they're equal, or it's, oh, you're on the LNC, what a shitstorm, and get the hell out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if I just introduce myself as Eric and having a regular conversation, luckily most people don't know what my face looks like. Yeah, there you go. I think that's it's one of my tactics. You fell for my dirty, underhanded tactics. Yeah, no, and that's the way I like it.
Yeah. I can definitely, I can imagine that, because probably most of those people that are like, oh, you're on the LNC, you suck.
Yeah.
If they talk to you, you'd agree with like every critique they have of the LNC and the LP National. But it's like quarterback syndrome, except for every member of the LNC kind of gets it if you actually get them face to face. It's usually put on the chair, like online, but if you actually have one of them in front of you, it's like, oh, everything that the Libertarian Party has ever done that you dislike since 1971, your fault, Eric. Yours.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm kind of surprised I haven't been blamed for Vietnam and World War II yet. I mean, to be honest,
well, because that was before 1971.
Well, yeah, but hey, it's always possible,
Yeah. I mean, the Prags got blamed for Gary Johnson, even though they were founded after. So
Well, so I mean, people are even in my vice chair race here. People are accusing me or manipulating some of my positions and saying that I'm pro minimum wage and I'm pro this and pro that, and I want Social Security forever and ever. And I'm like, no, if you or I want to take away everyone's guns. I've been told that I want to do that as well. And I'm like, okay, well, if you read what I wrote, you'll see where I don't say that ever. Or it's so obviously snarky and sarcastic that if you take one sentence out of it, yeah, okay, I could see where you're coming from, but it's if you read the whole body, I'm making fun of a gubernatorial candidate from Virginia who said that 66 million people die. No, 96 million people die from gun violence every single year in the United States. Yeah, exactly. 1/3 of the United States population dies from gun violence every single year.
Every year.
Thankfully, we have all of the illegals coming across the southern border, so that supplants the 1/3 that we lose of our own population every single year. But you know, because I said, you know, when the United States is losing 96 million people a year to gun violence, I'll support gun legislation, knowing that since 1966 to today, we've lost 1.1 million people to gun violence. Knowing that 96 million per year will never happen. Sure, yeah, absolutely. If we lose 96 million people in a single year to gun violence, sure, I'll support gun legislation. And they took that as me saying that, you know, I'm pro-gun.
You're a gun grabber.
Yeah, and I'm a gun grabber. Or, you know, I shared one of Ron Paul's posts about how if we were still on the silver standard, and the minimum wage was still what it was in 1968 at 66 cents an hour, that same 66 cents an hour would be now worth $15.50 if we were still on the silver standard. That obviously tells everyone that I'm pro minimum wage. So, you know,
of course,
the things being said about me are absolutely laughable. I put my foot in my own mouth plenty of times. I don't need anyone helping me put my foot in my mouth. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny, but yeah, sure, I get blamed for all sorts of things, things that I had never had any control over, or you know, all of this. The amount of people who bring up the abortion plank, like I wrote it, is kind of hysterical. You know, hey, whatever. But yeah, no.
You're killing babies, Eric.
You know what? Babies. Yeah, I'm killing zygotes here. But you know, it's yeah. I mean, it's. I'm sorry. You know, as long as it's not a viable child. You know, if you take it out of the mother's womb, is it going to live on it? You know, is it going to be able to sustain its own life? If not, you know, hey, I'm looking at it as a vessel. I mean, hey, you know, and you have a lot of religious people who say, well, that's a child and that God created it. Well, yeah, God created the vessel. And even in Genesis, Adam didn't become a man or a human until he received the breath of God, which was his first breath. That's when the soul entered the body. So,
that's a good point.
Yeah,
I've never heard that argument. That's a great argument.
So if the child's not viable and it doesn't breathe on its own, or maybe you know, start breathing after a spank on its bum, yeah, I'm sorry, the soul hasn't entered. It's only an empty vessel. Yeah, no, it's not a human. It's alive, sure, but so is bacteria. You know, it doesn't receive the human soul until after its first breath.
And Lysol. It's
yeah, exactly.
Genocidal
Lysol
product.
Kills people. Lysol kills, and it is anti-God. You know,
God created that bacteria and he wanted it to live.
Exactly. You know, God created that broccoli. How dare you consume it? You know, broccoli screams. Broccoli has feelings too. I'm telling you. But you know, hey.
Yeah, people are fun.
Yeah, they
and
are.
I'm really sympathetic to the pro-life movement. Because like So the thing that annoys me, I mean, it's just another example of this divide and conquer over some bullshit, right? No one, well, again, I won't say no one, but pretty much no one is actually pro-abortion, right? Nobody's like, I hope that a bunch of teenage girls get pregnant and then have to go through one of the most traumatic things they'll ever experience and kill it.
Mandatory abortions.
Yeah.
Every 100% mandatory abortions. No procreation whatsoever. It's time to end it all. Pack it in. Wrap it up, folks.
I mean, I might support that. Not gonna lie. Given the earlier conversation, I meet a lot of people in a day that should not reproduce.
You know what? Darwin works. Okay, let's just
no,
just
because I'm knocking on like some of the most beautiful, like fancy, rich houses, like. Somehow these dumb motherfuckers are making more money than I will ever hope to make and living nicer than I have ever lived.
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense.
But
yeah, like it's I don't know anyone that's actually pro-abortion. Like everyone wants to reduce the number of abortions. There's really just the statist versus the not statist like path to do so.
To be honest, one of the things that will stop abortions, not entirely, but reduce it greatly, is if we dramatically change our adoption laws and get the state out of it. There are so many people trying to get a child. You know, I mean, I have two very good friends of mine up in New York, John and Jody. And they tried getting to adopt a child for almost 12 years. And every single time they got close, they got denied because Jody's in a wheelchair. That's it. Jesus Both of them Christ. Make very good money. They own their house without a mortgage. They were able to care and love that child to no end. But because Jody's in a wheelchair and she was the mother figure, they denied the adoption. You look here in North Carolina, you know, I'm married to a man. His name's Alex. I love him very much. But for us to adopt a child would cost 2 to 3 times what a straight couple would pay. These things are absolutely ridiculous. And if you want to make a big difference in actual abortion rates, it's allow people to adopt a child into a loving family and get the damn state out of it and make sure that it all works the way it's supposed to work. That's going to be one of the biggest things to change the abortion rates in this country right off the bat, is change adoption law and make it make sense again.
Yeah. And then you mix that with getting rid of abstinence only sex ed, which is like legally the only thing that teachers are allowed to teach. And I think it's still like 22 states or something like that. Or 21 states is still like abstinence only sex ed. They're not allowed to teach about condoms. They're not allowed to teach about birth control. They're not allowed to teach about abortion or anything like that. It's just don't do it. Then you don't get pregnant or STDs.
So, I mean, you look at it, the IUD was originally invented in the 1400s in the Middle East. Condoms have been in use for almost, if not longer. This is not new technology. This is nothing new. I mean, granted, the American public education system sucks because it's run by the state, and we have old textbooks, but none of them are that fucking old. You know, I'm sorry. You know, it's time to get with the times and talk and have real conversations with our children. You know, there's some politicians that want our children to go out and vote at the age of 16 now, but God forbid we actually tell them, oh yeah, you put a piece of rubber on your dick and you're not going to get a child out of it. That's bad. But
Most
let them
likely.
go choose who president is going to be, and that's fine. I mean, it's so backwards in this country. We don't know which way is up, and we've got to protect our children, but we're going to let our children run our lives too. It's absolutely ridiculous. Doesn't make any sense. We have to make a choice. Choose what age a child becomes an adult, and allow them to make their choices in their life. If you want to choose 18, choose 18. If you want to choose 16, choose 16. But that's when you can go out and buy your own guns, buy your own weed, buy your own liquor, join the military, sign a legal contract, get a credit card, do whatever the hell you damn well please. If that's what we choose as you being an adult, that's when you become an adult, and you get all the power. If you want to choose 21, yeah, okay, you got to change the Constitution, because right now it says that 18 is when you go vote. But if we think that 21-year-olds are when you become an adult, then everything becomes 21. Join the military at 21, whatever. I don't care. But we have to set an age for when we become an adult and make sure that we stick to it. Yeah. And then no one wants 12-year-olds going out and voting, and no one wants 12-year-olds going out and buying guns, and no one wants 12-year-olds choosing who their sexual partners are, or what they're going to do to their bodies, because it doesn't make any sense. 12-year-olds, you're still a child, and you can't make those decisions without the assistance of your parents.
Yeah.
It's just, we have to choose an age where people become adults, and you get all of your rights at that point.
I 100% agree, and I would support that number being 16. I have some friends.
I mean, I think 16 in our modern age. I think 16 is a fair age. I've gone and talked at a lot of high schools, and had a lot of deep conversations with 16-year-olds, and I'm like, okay, we have a fair understanding of what's going on in the world. Are all of them ready for it? No. But I know 40-year-olds that aren't ready for it yet. Right. So, you just got to choose, what age you think is the right age for the majority of individuals. And I would think 16 is a reasonable age. I think 18 is probably going to still be an easier sell. But, hey, if people wanted 16, I'd be okay with that. Anything younger than 16, no, not a chance.
I would also support, I know you're saying that it should be an across the board thing, but I'm gonna tiny bit disagree. That I would support the legal contract signing kind of stuff to be before the other stuff, because I think that you should be able to get an apartment, have a bank account, have a job before your brain stops developing. And I feel like it would be really hard to sell lowering the drinking and smoking ages to 16. I don't even really want to argue that. I think that's kind of a dumb thing to say.
So there's a general age where everything becomes legal to you. But there's another program that goes through the court system, because we believe that the legal system is the answer to everything, and mostly we're right. The legal system has something called emancipation. And if the child is found to be of sound mind and the ability to make good choices, the courts can emancipate them and give them their rights early. And I would be totally fine with that. I would be absolutely fine with that.
We need to, that's another thing that I think libertarians could talk more on and speak more on. I know we're not really loud about the youth rights thing. I have a couple of friends that are, but I think it's something that we could do more work on. I mean, we already get accused of being all making jokes about the age of consent and age of things. Might as well just lean into it and actually talk about it, because I think the emancipation system in this country is super fucked, because you need to have bad parents. And I moved out of my house at 17, not because my parents sucked, but because my parents were great and pushed me to be able to graduate high school a year early. And so I was an adult at 17, but I couldn't do shit.
And again, I mean, I've brought it up quite a few times in this conversation, but it's also our society. The way we look at an emancipated youth is, oh, I'm sorry, you had such crap parents. No, there's two sides to every single coin. And just because a child gets emancipated doesn't necessarily mean that they had crap parents. Maybe their parents did it, like in your case, a phenomenal job.
Well, in my case, we can't get emancipated. That's the problem. Like, if they did, like I have to prove that like they were abusing me or something, which, not gonna lie, I legitimately considered, because like when I was 16, I was going through some angsty phase, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get emancipated. I'm gonna like lie about some shit because like they can't prove me wrong, and I'm just gonna like be my own person. And then I didn't do that, thank God.
Yeah. But I mean, there should be. Obviously, the legal system isn't structured that way right now, but it should be, because you're absolutely right. I mean, if you're ready to stand on your own 2 feet, prove it and do it that way. Of course, there's a drop dead date. If that's 16, 18, whatever, then you get all your rights regardless if you're ready or not, because that's what we have to do. But yeah, I mean, I'm totally fine with that. If someone can prove that they are of sound mind and they're under the age of general emancipation or consent or whatever we want to call it, and they go through the court system, the court system usually gets it right. You look at environmental law. Yeah, okay. The EPA was created to protect our environment. What destroys our environment more than anything else? The EPA. Look who gets to protect our environment, the court system. Here in North Carolina, our state-run EPA has a book of guidelines like every other state does. And one of the proper disposal methods of tires is burning. It hasn't been updated since the 1970s. I mean, we're crying out loud.
That's the future libertarians want. Burning.
Exactly. I mean, this is low-hanging fruit, people. This is not difficult. Punch out Maverick. I don't know. Just figure it out. But it's crazy. It's absolutely insane. And the court systems get it right. There was a huge battle in our state that, over hog lagoons. And if you don't know what a hog lagoon is, look it up. I'm not going to explain it because it's rather nasty. But hog lagoons were destroying people's property values. And they sued. They sued, all your bacon manufacturers and your Hormels and all of that. And they won. All these commercial pig operations had to pay these people a lot of money because they were destroying their property. And good for them. Courts got it wrong. They tried going through the EPA first, and the EPA said, it's fine. No problem. So, the courts won. Yeah, exactly. That's why we have the government. It's absolutely ridiculous. The court system is probably, it's corrupt. It is not working the way it should work, but it works closer to the way it should work than Congress or any of the regulatory agencies that we've created, the alphabet soup of Washington, D.C. So yeah, I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah.
As long as government doesn't try getting back involved in it, because coal ash ponds here in North Carolina spilt millions of tons of coal ash, destroyed drinking water, was giving children cancer. The EPA said, it's fine. They're all the coal ash ponds are A-okay. And they went to the courts. Courts said, "Are you kidding me? People are dying over this. You need to give restitution. You need to pay medical bills, and you need to relocate them and buy them new housing and all of that stuff, or provide them bottled water at least." And then the governor came in and said, no, these are state-run facilities now, so they're outside of environmental protection rights because we're self-monitored.
Jesus Christ.
Duke Power signed over all of the land that they've been dumping coal ash on to the state. The governor took it, and now it's self-regulated and self-mandated, and it's beyond question because the government can't sue itself. So it's again, it goes back to our very beginning of the conversation of who does the government represent? We, the corporations, and there you go.
Amen. I'll bring it back one more time to the vice chair and ask, like, what of your corporate experience do you think is going to translate well into being the COO of the Libertarian Party?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of different aspects in my corporate background. I worked for a company called Golfsmith. I was the operations manager, the regional operations manager here. And I really worked a lot on getting their online platforms and online shopping aspects for their retail. Obviously, I don't want to turn the Libertarian Party into a shop, but there is a lot to be said about customer management systems, which we already have, a CRM or basically exactly that is a customer relations management tool. We already have that, but that needs to be further developed, and it needs to be utilized properly. And that's one of the things that I would definitely look to further.
Can we get one built in-house?
Amazing work on that. Pardon?
Can we get one that's built in-house so that we can actually work with?
Well, we do. The one that we have is built in-house.
Oh, is it?
Yep.
Okay.
It's all open source, and it has been completely customized for our needs. It's a good structure. It has a lot more to go. There's a lot of data security questions, or with the shenanigans that have been going on. How do we make sure that the data follows the right people? And those are legitimate questions. We definitely need to look at revising a lot of our affiliate agreements because a lot of them no longer exist. And we just need to bring everything up into the 21st century. The majority of our affiliate agreements were originally signed in the 70s. And, when computers took up an entire floor of a building, so they couldn't even imagine digital rights and all of that stuff. So the 21st century, we need to rewrite and revamp a lot of our agreements. And what is the Libertarian Party actually going to provide the states? And what are the states going to provide national? And these are all types of things that need to really be looked at and brought up to a modern age, because a lot of questions are just not even answered or even remotely addressed when these agreements and contracts were signed.
How do we
need to be really looking at all of that stuff? So yeah, operationally, there's a lot that needs to be gone through.
How do we redo our affiliate agreements now in the middle of everything that's going on without them getting skewed, whether it be one way or the other, to either reinforce states' rights or give us an ability to censor messaging or something?
You have to be writing them as neutrally as possible. You need someone that. One of the things I've learned, and I've hated it for years, but you can't do things as a knee jerk. Knee jerks always blow up in your face. I mean, look at Washington today. Most of our legislation is written as a knee-jerk reaction to something that's going on in the news cycle. And the more often that happens, the more things get screwed up in the long run. You know, you have to sometimes be okay with taking a step back, thinking about it, and then acting. Because doing a knee-jerk reaction is going to absolutely destroy it every single time. So yeah, new contract needs to be written. National is initiating it, so maybe National has to fork over a little more, chutzpah or something to sweeten the pot to really make it valuable for the state to re-sign. But these are all things that need to be looked at. How does this go around? I'm not a lawyer, and these contracts all would need to be gone over with a fine-tooth comb, hopefully by lawyers on both sides, and the state and the national, and it needs to be made sure that it's mutually beneficial, and that's really what it boils down to, and make it go forward from there.
I also think it sets a really good lead by example precedence of how a federalist system should work.
Yeah.
We talked earlier about the watering the tree of liberty. There's one singular way where that isn't necessary, and that's pretty much this, where we have renegotiations of mutually beneficial contracts every so often that reaffirm something like that. And if we can show that we can move forward through something like this, I think we could be like, hey, I know we're only a small group of 500,000 people or so, but we are a 50 state organization that just went through this process, and it worked. We could probably do that on a national level. Imagine having that talking point. That'd be awesome.
Look at Mexico. Mexico makes their marriage certificates only last for 7 years because they're anti-divorce, right? So if you don't want to be married anymore, wait 7 years. Your marriage certificate expires and you're not married anymore. Congratulations. Leave it to the Catholics. Leave it to the Catholics. Can't get divorced. No. But your wedding expires. Congratulations. Now you have to go get a new marriage certificate. Maybe we should do something similar between the states and national. Make
it a 30-year,
make an expiration date on them.
20-year.
Put it to the point where we have to renegotiate these every X number of years. If 7's the right number of years, whatever that number is. And it could be different from state to state, and then renegotiate to make sure that, hey, who knows? Right now, Delaware has 3 delegates, right? 7 years from now, maybe they have 40 delegates. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but, I don't see an population explosion in Delaware. But maybe Delaware needs to renegotiate their standing power and their talking points in 7 years from now. I think that's a very good idea and a very valid point. That what states go through is not necessarily what is going to be best for the state in X number of years. Especially in the digital world that we live in, it's completely different.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned national having to do something to sweeten the pot, and I think that the association with an actually professional organization, I think, is definitely would sweeten the pot. We've talked about a decent amount about chair and vice chair. If anybody watching wants to see what a CFO at Treasurer sounds like, I interviewed Todd Hagopian probably 8-9 months ago. He's running for treasurer, and honestly, pretty much everything that he said to me, that was almost a year ago at this point, matches up 100% with your platform, which I love. I'm excited to see you guys work together.
Absolutely, and I look forward to working with Todd as well.
And even my other endorsement, which also caught me flack, was Tyler Smith for secretary.
Mhm.
But also fits into a lot of what you're saying, of just
Tyler's a great
bringing it
guy.
into the
I've known
21st
Tyler for
century.
years. I've known Tyler for years. Actually, in the 20 so in 2022 or in 2020, the Orlando convention during the experience. Actually, I went and got a Homeland Suites because I didn't know what restaurants were going to be open, so I wanted to make sure that I had a hotel room with a kitchen. So actually, I got a 2-bedroom suite, and Tyler was my roommate for the Orlando convention. So yeah, no, absolutely, Tyler's a great guy. I like the heck out of him. He's a good one.
Yeah.
But I mean, I love Karen Ann too. I mean, Karen Ann is. I don't care what you think about her personally. She's an amazing powerhouse of a secretary. There's just no denying that. I mean, read her minutes and you will see detail I've never seen in secretarial reports. I mean, it's mind blowing. I mean, the quality of work she does as a secretary is unquestionable. Unquestionable.
My opinion on Karen Ann is that she's such a great activist that her being secretary, especially secretary of national, state, and county, is just like a waste of time and like an energy from someone that could be like I would just so much rather. So like she spends 4 hours on like a meeting and then typing up the minutes to a meeting for like the county party. If that 4 hours was like going to, speaking at, and going home from some like pro cannabis rally or like whatever thing, like she's a fucking awesome activist, a great speaker. She's also a really good parliamentarian. So if there was a way to just like pay her to go to every state convention and be the parliamentarian as just like a full-time job, I'd support the hell out of that.
She would absolutely love that.
One of my actual issues with her is that she's kind of anti-technology in a way. She's a very big fan of like paper ballots and like in-person things, and she's been fairly the reason that I went the extra mile and actually endorsed Tyler over Karen Ann was because I think that she might actually hold back some of the things that people like you and Todd and Angela are talking about, of really just like moving us into that 21st century. And I love her where she is. I just think that we have a potential that she doesn't want because she doesn't trust it, and for valid reasons. And maybe her counterbalanced voice might be good, might be beneficial if she's outweighed enough by other members. But
you were talking about technology there. One of the committee positions that I hold is for the convention committee, and we are currently sussing out the return of Porcupine. So Porcupine was originally going to make its debut in 2020, but it was very young. Let's be honest. 2020 probably was a very big rush to national. It has now spent 2 years making the state convention circuit. A lot of issues have been worked out. A lot of new features have been added. And we were even looking at Scantrons and other digital voting platforms, or just to really make everything kind of work better. And we are currently working with the Porcupine team to make sure that it's possible to bring it to Reno. And so look for updates about that. That's a little top secret insider news about what you may see at Reno. Also, be prepared. The new convention app is going to be coming out soon. So we're coming back out with the convention app. So if you should be on the Facebook group for the convention, and there will be a QR code so you can make sure that you download the new app for the convention. It's going to have all sorts of maps and all of your bylaws changes and all sorts of fun stuff.
Nice. That
Yeah.
actually sounds super awesome.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
We're entering the 21st century. Ooh.
Yeah. I'm excited to see Porcupine. So I interviewed TJ a few months after. It was probably like February or March of last year. And we've been using Porcupine in New York all of 2021 and so far into 22. Everything that we do, except we had one in-person meeting where like pretty much no one showed up virtually, and so they just didn't use it. But we've pretty much used it for every single state committee meeting, executive committee meeting, like everything. And there were problems in the beginning, and there's reasons why you guys didn't use it in Orlando. But now it's great. Yeah. And I'm really happy about it. And the ability that I've seen of it to make the hybrid meetings work is really interesting. And even just like the in-person meetings, like my first dozen times using it was just through Zoom. So obviously you almost can't do a virtual meeting following Robert's rules with 60 something people without something like Porcupine. So it was a dead necessity. But when we started doing in-person meetings again, I just kind of assumed that we wouldn't use it. And then they ended up being hybrid meetings, which I'd forgotten about. And I was like, this is kind of neat. I can just like sit in my chair on my phone and put myself into the queue. And then the chair is like, David. And then you stand up and you talk. And then you sit back down. And it's just, I don't know. It's just, as a Robert's Rule nerd, I love the fact that we found a way to 21st century eyes and expedite and like microwave society where we need everything to be technological and fast paced. We found a way to make Robert's Rules make sense on an app, and I love it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And again, this is something that's built in-house based on open source technology.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, TJ's done an amazing job. That we still have some questions. We still have some hey, what about this kind of stuff? And we're going to see, how we can overcome some of the questions or some of the concerns that we have on the national things that we weren't even thinking about in 2020, but now have come up to question. So, I mean, granted, I'd love to see Porcupine, and we're doing a lot of due diligence to get it up and running and actually fit all the needs of National Convention. So I'm excited to see where that goes.
All right. Me too. I might not actually have to use it, like I said, but we'll see.
Well, you know what? You can still follow along on it while you're drinking and doing copious amounts of drugs while you're in the media pit.
There you go. Well, Eric, before we wrap up, tell people where they can find you, follow you, get in touch, donate, help out, volunteer on both your campaign and other projects.
So one of my links you'll see actually scrolling below. I should have pointed that out before. That's on patreon.com /Erik_Raudsep, ERIKRAUDSEP. You'll also find me at Facebook, and that's facebook.com/Erik Raudsep, no underscore in that one. I have a Twitter account, but I don't think I've actually used it in years.
I know I tagged you in a post about this episode, and I had to like find your account, and I was like, oh, I don't even follow him. That's interesting. And then I scrolled, and I was like, oh, because he doesn't use Twitter.
Yeah, actually, someone pointed out
it's a better life. Just enjoy your
really
much better life.
Someone pointed out here in North Carolina to me that the last time it was updated when I was running for NC House back in 2018. So 4 years ago is the last time I really used Twitter. Yeah.
Makes sense. For a campaign, that makes sense.
Yeah. So otherwise, I'm not a big Twitter fan. So yeah, Facebook and Patreon, those are the best ways to find me. If you become a Patreon supporter, there's a whole bunch of extra super secret stuff going on, because we know how much we as libertarians love super secret stuff. No, but we'll get you a pin. We'll get you whatever. We'll throw some swag at you and go from there.
I love swag.
Those are the two best ways to find me. Also, always reach out to me. You can reach me at my email, which is erik.raudsep@lp.org. I'll always respond to an email. Reach out to me. Hey, if you're close enough and I see smoke signals, I'll respond to you. I mean, I like being reachable. I like talking with people, and we'll go from there.
Nice. Well, Erik, thank you so much for coming on. I am excited to see what you are going to be able to do as vice chair. It's something that I've talked to a few of my friends, and at this point, a lot of my friends, at an unfortunately long amount of time, unfortunate for them, about a lot of the things that you bring up, and a lot of just like the corporate structure. It's like, that's what I come from. I did 5 years of retail and financial sales, just corporate structure, politeness, 9 to 5s, like the rat race of it all. And I understand how structures and dynamics work and how things actually fucking get done. And I think, unfortunately, a large majority, or maybe not majority, but a very large chunk of the party hasn't ever seen anything really get built or done.
So here's one of the things. As libertarians, right, we love the free market. We always talk about the free market. Why don't we take some of their ideas and actually bring them into our own organization?
Right.
I don't know. Just saying.
100%. Well, Erik, again, thanks for coming on. This was awesome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It has been awesome. And for anybody that has been watching the entire time, I appreciate you. It's a long one, but it's been fun. It has been a lot of fun.
Amen. All right, guys, thanks again for tuning in. If you don't already do so, like the video, subscribe to the channel, click the link to the Patreon or to the Odysee, and go like the video over there and subscribe to the channel over there, because Odysee is better than YouTube, and YouTube's going to take me down soon. And then go to Nugg of Knowledge, get stoned, and then check out Erik and follow him on Patreon and Facebook and all the other things. And then tune in tomorrow. We've got Josh Eagle, former chair of Tennessee LP. He's working with Students for Liberty and For All Tennessee, and we're gonna have an awesome time. Yeah.
For All Tennessee, by the way.
For
Everyone
All Tennessee.
who's still watching, For All Tennessee, go check that out. Josh and Justin are powerhouses in Tennessee and are coming up with new ways and new solutions. So huge supporter, huge fan of those two. So yeah,
I'm excited. I'm really trying to focus on the doers, and they are two very young, very active, very hit the ground running and did some shit doers. And I'm excited.
I'm glad they're following me, because that's a lot lower of a bar than me following them. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Fair enough. Guys, thanks again for watching. Catch you back here tomorrow. Until then, keep up the fight.
Shut up and sit down.